Welcome to First Page Fridays. I'm April Davila for Sit Right Here. I'm a novelist and a mindset coach. I help aspiring authors write more and suffer less. And today we're going to look at somebody's first page. It was sent in by one of you. Thank you for sending it. This only works if we have pages to work with. So the way we do it is I'm going to shrink myself down here. I will read the page through just top to bottom. Doing my best with pronunciations. Bear with me, please. This is the first time I've read it. Then we'll jump back to the top and I will edit it as if I were working with the client, and I'll kind of narrate my thinking on it as I go so that we can all learn from this generous writer's sharing of their page. Let's start at the top. Darker than night. A black car rolled to the exit of the High-Low Club's parking lot and stopped facing the hotel. The odor of its exhaust infiltrated the lobby. I shut the door. The glass reflected my black eye patch and the painting on the wall behind me, a man at the wheel of a ship in stormy waters. A light flashed on inside the car. I opened the door again, and there he was behind the wheel, Latham. He raised a finger toward me as though it were a gun. The light inside the car switched off. Latham cruised down Mill Road. The High-Low's neon sign stained the sidewalk, and my hands blood red. People streamed out of the High-Low. Another vehicle, a dark van, chugged to a stop and parked at the curb, but no one got out. Ernie strolled toward the hotel. He slapped the van's fender in the way he'd smack a horse's flank. His black ponytail bounced, and he whistled Imagine, the Lennon song he'd sung through his whole tour of Nam. He came in, smelling of beer and sweat from the back room poker game at the High-Low. Excuse me. I won $10 tonight. Latham was there. He lost. Ernie slid a toothpick out of his shirt pocket and chewed it. You mess with your eye patch when something bugs you. I jammed my hand in my pocket. Nash cornered me this morning, Ernie said. He thinks you aren't doing enough. He was talking about organizing the tenants. Okay. We've got some good tension here. I mean, right off the bat, we have some mysterious figures. We have a very clear threat of someone like pretending to, pointing the gun finger and then turning out the light. That's pretty, seems pretty creepy. And we have a lot of imagery, the hands are blood red and there's a ship in stormy waters. There's a very distinct tone that matches our title here, Darker Than Night. So in that way, I feel like we're getting a really good sense of where this story is going. There's a lot happening here, so I'm going to break it up into a couple of paragraphs just to try to get a better sense of what's where here. So a black car rolled into the exit of the High-Low Club's parking lot and stopped facing the hotel. Okay, so I guess this is right off the bat. I'm a little confused. There's a club, a High-Low Club, and then there's a hotel. So the black car rolled to the exit of the High-Low Club's parking lot and stopped facing the hotel. Okay. So what I'm picturing is a club somehow perpendicular to the hotel. Okay, the odor of its exhaust infiltrated the lobby. But if he's facing the hotel, he'd have to be pretty close for the exhaust to get into the lobby. I can roll with that for now, but it is a little confusing. I shut the door. I like that we get... so right now it's there's car, there's the odor. I mean, it's always great to get smell in there. That's really good. And then I feel like it really lands with we get our narrator. I get up and shut the door. And not only that, but we immediately get the detail that this person, I can't recall if I think it's a man or a woman, I'm not sure, has a black eye patch, which is a cool detail. I've said before in other recordings that characters who have some sort of imperfection, quote unquote, are interesting. They're memorable. It gives the reader something to kind of remember about them. I shut the door. The glass reflected my black eye patch and the painting on the wall behind me, a man at the wheel of a ship in the stormy waters. That is kind of a lot to digest. I'm going to leave it for now. We can circle back. A light flashed on inside the car. Okay. I opened the door. So, okay, this is the door is the lobby. Okay, opened the door. I wonder why. A light flashed on. I opened the door. Presumably it's a glass door. So why open the door again? And there he was behind the wheel. You didn't need to open the door to see that Latham was behind the wheel. I might just cut that. a light flashed on inside the car, and there he was behind the wheel, Lotham. He raised a finger toward me as though it were a gun. I like that detail. The light inside the car switched off. Lotham cruised down Mill Road. Okay, we get the detail of the road. And then, so we have we get this little bit with the guy inside the car. We get introduced to Lotham. We don't get any details about what Lotham looks like. We know it's a he, which is more than we know about our narrator just yet, except for the eye patch. Old, young, like, could you describe maybe some wrinkles around his eyes? I mean, that might be too specific from where this point of view is, but like, does he have a buzz cut? Because it sounds like we're getting a little into like, we get in the mention of Nam, right? And so maybe these are vets. Maybe does he have like a military buzz cut? Has his hair gone shaggy? You can drop a few details. If you said something like his hair had gone shaggy in the 3 months since I'd seen him, not only are you telling us what he looks like, but you're telling us, giving us a hint of what our narrator's relationship is to them. So consider giving us some details there. All right, Lotham cruised down Mill Road. So presumably he was, okay, so this is, again, I'm a little lost in logistics. The car is facing the hotel. And the guy like turns on the light, does little like gun fingers, and then he continues to cruise on. It seems like he would cruise right into the hotel, and I'm not sure how that relates to the club. I'm a little lost in the geography. It might make sense to slow down a little bit and give a little bit of that. The high-lows neon stained the sidewalk. I might, for clarity's sake, so add the word sign in your first page. You want clarity to rule above all else, because as you get deeper into the story, if you have something that's maybe a little ambiguous or not perfectly clear, your reader will have enough of the story in their head already that they can roll with it, right? But when they're first starting on a story, if anything is unclear, like crystal unclear, if anything is less than crystal clear, your reader doesn't have anything to support them as they're getting into the story. And that's why I find the geography a little confusing. But this would be another example. The high-lows neon sign stained the sidewalk and my hands. This is, it's a little awkward. Stained the sidewalk and my hands blood red. What might be more clear would be to say like, cast a, and I'm going to go with your kind of themed wording here, a bloody tint to cast a bloody tint on the sidewalk and my hands. So there's just something like we want to do kind of a parallel construction thing where the high-lows neon sign cast a bloody tint on the sidewalk and my hands. Even that is still a little awkward because presumably you, narrator, are inside the hotel lobby. So I'm not sure, like that's some powerful neon. I get it. I like the image of it on the sidewalk. That makes sense to me. But if it really is that strong that like if you're standing inside another building behind a counter, presumably, right? If you're standing in the lobby, you are some sort of employee, I guess. So I'm not entirely clear on that. I could roll with it, but just so you know. People streamed out of the high-low. Another vehicle. Okay, so people. I wonder if you could be more specific. Because people could be 2, people could be 50. In general, specificity is going to be better. Like 2 drunk girls stumbled out of the high-low. Or 2 tough-looking thugs with shoulders like gorillas came out of the high-low arguing about something. See if you can be a little more specific than people. I'm going to say 2 tough guys because this seems to be the world that we're living in. Shoulders like gorillas. I'll just say with broad shoulders. Broad shoulders streamed out of the high and streamed. Streamed seems more like more people. I'm gonna say stumbled. Again, I am just making things up here. This is your story, so you got to figure out exactly what you're envisioning and get that on the page. But I'm just making suggestions here. 2 tough guys with broad shoulders stumbled out of the high-low. And again, this would be the opportunity to give us a little geography. I could just see them from my perch in the hotel lobby, or they were, give us some of those details. Another vehicle, a dark van, chugged to a stop and parked at the curb, but no one got out. No one got out before either, so I don't know that you need that. Ernie strolled toward the hotel. Okay, so I don't know who Ernie is. Let me review it. Am I missing it? Okay. Do we get Lotham? And then people that I changed to two tough guys. Okay, so you need to introduce Ernie. And Ernie, like, is he one of the guys who came out of the high-low? Ernie, I'm going to assume that's the case. Emerged behind them and strolled toward the hotel. And I'm going to say lobby, just to be specific, because that's where we've put our narrator. He slapped the van's fender the way he'd smack a horse's flank. Okay, and so that's the another vehicle, dark van, chugged to a stop. Okay, so that's the van. He slapped the van's fender the way he might smack a horse's flank. I like that. It also speaks to our narrator, right? Anyone who's going to compare anything to smacking a horse's flank, I would hope, has some sort of backstory that includes horses. Otherwise, so even, let's say Ernie does, right? Like maybe Ernie grew up on a farm. He absolutely would smack it the same way he smacks a horse's flank. If our narrator isn't familiar with horses and life on a farm, they're not going to tell us that way. They'd say he just smacked the van's fender, like it offended him or something like that. I hope that makes sense. Like when we are in a first person narrator, we have to describe things in the way that that person's backstory would explain. So unless he has some history with horses, this might not be the best metaphor for our narrator to use, even though I do love it as an image. Okay, he slapped the van's fender. His black ponytail bounced. Great, this is a great detail. And he whistled Imagine, the Lennon song he'd sung through his whole tour in Nam. This is a great sentence. You get a lot of detail about Ernie in this sentence. He's got a black ponytail. He's whistling like one of the most beautiful, peaceful songs you'll ever hear. And it's this, and we learned that he sang it all the way through his tour in Vietnam, presumably as an American military. And so now we know he's a vet. Okay, so the other question that this raises for me is, when are we? I wonder, so if you're talking Vietnam vet, I mean, you're talking, I'm like, it's earliest it could be as late 60s, but it could also be like my dad's a vet. He's still kicking. His hair's not black anymore. So I don't think this guy's in his 80s. So I'm guessing we're probably like 70s, 80s in terms of decade here. We know this song has come out, but I wonder if you could drop us a hint in here somewhere about what year we're in, or what city even. Start to look for ways to hint at where and when we are in the world. You've narrowed it down to a couple of decades, which isn't bad, but and it doesn't have to be in this first couple of sentences, but start to think about how you can draw us into where and when we are. Okay, so then he came in smelling of beer and sweat from the backroom poker game at the high-low. Hold on. Sorry, I had a tickle in my throat. I needed a sip of water. All right, he came in smelling of beer and sweat from the backroom poker game. Now, I wonder, does beer and sweat smell differently in the back room as it does in the front room? And how does it smell differently if you're playing poker versus blackjack? He came in smelling of beer and sweat. And I knew he'd been playing poker in the back room at the high-low. Like, I think that's what you're going for, is that, like, this character knows this about him. So I'm just going to put that... and I knew he'd been playing poker poker in the back room. Poker, nice. Poker in the back room at the high-low. So the more than like the smell of beer and sweat being specific to the back room, this tells us that our narrator knows Ernie. He came in, smelled of beer and sweat, and I knew he'd been playing poker in the back room at the high-low. I won $10 tonight. Lotham was there. You know what? I might leave this as part of this paragraph. It's all description of him, and then give a new paragraph for the dialogue. I won $10 tonight, Ernie said. Ernie said. Lotham was there. He lost. I mean, that's a fun way for this character to enter the story. I want $10. Lotham, who we just met, who seemed very cranky, Now we know, okay, he lost. Ernie slid a toothpick. And since I already put Ernie in here, I would put, he slid a toothpick out of his shirt pocket and chewed it. You mess with your, you mess with your eye patch when something bugs you. Okay, so and that's actually a really clever way of the dialogue letting us know that our narrator has started playing with the eye patch. I jammed my hands in my pocket. Nash cornered me this morning. Okay, so then we're back to Ernie. So let's break this up. Nash cornered me this morning, Ernie said. He thinks you aren't doing enough. He was talking about organizing the tenants. Okay, so tenants speaks to long-term housing versus hotel. Now, there are hotels where people live. I wonder if that could be more clear. If this is a hotel where people are actually living, what descriptions could you use? Or like maybe do you have someone walk by the glass front of the lobby and like, oh, there's so-and-so. He'd been with us for 2 weeks, longer than most people or shorter than most people. Give us a little bit of the setting of the hotel. So in general, I think this is interesting. We've got some interesting characters, though I don't know much about Ernie yet, but I do actually, Ernie's probably the one we know the most about. We get all of this about him. Sorry, I don't know much about our narrator yet, except for the eye patch, and that maybe Lotham is mad at them. I don't even know if it's a he or a she. So looking for some ways to build out just a tiny bit of detail so that as the reader, I know what to imagine so that I am drawn into the story. Opportunities for that, let's see. I think in this first reflect my black eye patch. And unless this painting is really important, I mean, I like the tone, I like the metaphor, right? A man at the wheel of a ship in stormy waters, because that seems to be where this kind of the story is going. But I wonder if this space might be used, or you might additionally, the glass reflected my black eye patch, and I'm going to assume this is a guy. I'm making that assumption because the other characters are men and they seem to address each other. Well, Ernie seems to address him as a familiar, not as like a romantic. Not that it would have to be romantic if it was female. I'm just making my best guess here. I'm thinking it's a guy. And so you could say my black eye patch and the 5 o'clock shadow, or my beard, my too long beard. I'm trying to think of something that would be specifically male. My scruffy beard. You could keep the painting on the wall. You could say, the glass reflected my black eye patch and my scruffy beard. I also noticed the reflection. I mean, I already said reflected, the image of the painting on the wall behind me, a man at the wheel of a ship and storm. I mean, you could keep it, right? It's not that you have to replace it, but I think something like my scruffy beard and my black eye patch, I suddenly am like, okay, it is a man. Maybe he's a little scruffy. He's got a beard. He's got an eye patch. That at least lets me form some sort of mental image of him that I can hang on to as I go through the story. A light flashed inside the car behind the wheel of Lotham. Give us some detail of Lotham. High-lows neon sign, cast a bloody tint on the sidewalk, and my hands. 2 tough guys. Again, I added the details here. Another dark vehicle, a dark van, chugged to a stop and parked at the curb, but no one got out. Ernie, tell us a little bit more about Ernie. Or rather, you give us the details about Ernie, but where does he come from? He just appears out of nowhere here. So Ernie emerged behind them and strolled toward the lobby. He slapped the van's fender. Black ponytail bounce, we get all that. This is actually such a great, I mean, even the smelling beer and sweat. So I have a good sense of this guy. I won $10. Lotham lost. You mess with your eye patch when something bugs you. I jam my hands in my pocket. Nash cornered me this morning. Okay, so I think that's just about everything I have to say on this one. Thank you so much for sharing your page, and I am intrigued by this. I am curious to know what's going on in this world. Like even Lotham just pointing the gun and doing that thing is interesting. So I would definitely keep reading, but I would need some clarity on this pretty quickly in terms of who these people are, where they are, what time of year it is, what decade it is, those sorts of things. So great work. Thank you for sharing. If you would like to share, if this wasn't your page and you would like to share yours, check out the link below in the comments, and you can send your page in and we'll put it in the queue and we'll get to it as soon as we can. And until then, happy writing, everybody.